Hey, everybody, welcome to the stream. Much to talk about. We have the planned topic of Bernie Sanders running for the 2020 Democratic nomination. I see a lot of people already in the chat wanting to chime in about that, and I have a lot to say about it, including already more than what was said on the clip that we put up at 4:30 p.m. Eastern a couple hours ago related to the connected to today's broadcast show. A whole bunch of other topics already to discuss regarding Bernie, including what I think are the best arguments against him, even though I was a supporter of Bernie in 2016, and he is immediately sort of in the top three candidates that I might support. So we'll talk about that. There's also breaking news regarding new whistleblower allegations that involve the Trump White House transferring the word used right now is sensitive nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia, which, if true, would go against an atomic research related law, which requires anything that could be used for the development of nuclear weapons to be first approved by Congress. And this involves Michael Flynn, it involves Jared Kushner, it involves Donald Trump, and it's really sort of the continued swamp filling that we have seen. And although the word treason is not being used, it's part of this seeming prioritization of foreign powers over American interests that we've been seeing in this administration. So a lot to talk about. I will be taking super chats. I am willing to open the phone lines in a little bit if people are interested and if we get some new members. So a lot of different things going on. If you have a question for me, if you have a comment that you want me to read and react to, use super chat, which is the $ at the bottom of the chat window. Also, sign up for membership. Membership coupon codes are in the description. If we get 10 new members during the stream, I'm more than happy to open up the phones. So many people call in that it costs us money. You know, we pay a service for the phone system, and when 30 people are holding for a half hour, that starts to add up. So usually the deal I make with you during the live streams is 10 new members on our website or via Patreon or YouTube channel members, and I will open up the live phone lines at 617-830-4750. And lastly, please don't troll the live chat, okay? There are moderators, and people just get banned every live stream. It's sort of depressing. What is this? Is this what your life has come to? Trolling live chats? That's very, very sad. Okay, so let's get right into sort of the top story. It was the top story on today's broadcast show, and it's the top story on today's live stream. Bernie Sanders has launched his 2020 presidential campaign. Certainly, there is a consensus that he is not an underdog in the sense that he was in 2016. Name recognition higher. A lot of the proposals, a lot of the ideas that are now just assumed to be part of any serious Democratic contender, whether it relates to healthcare, whether it relates to college tuition, whether it relates to what are the tax rates that people should be paying, that corporations should be paying. A lot of this stuff came from Bernie's 2016 candidacy. So, as I said on today's broadcast program, I see Bernie Sanders immediately as a front runner, with the caveat that usually, historically, the February from the year before the election frontrunners don't actually become the Democratic nominees. There's a lot of other sort of interesting things that we can say about the Bernie candidacy. One is, has Bernie, and it was so weird. I said this on the broadcast show, and I got a few emails and comments from people saying these are DNC talking points. I couldn't tell you what the DNC talking points are. I'm not a Democrat, and I just give you my opinion. If I overlap with the DNC 2%, maybe let's all try to relax a little bit about it. But one of the things I wondered aloud about is Bernie weakened relative to 2016 by no longer having unique views on some of these issues as a result of Bernie 2016 mainstreaming a lot of these issues? I don't know the answer to that. It's merely sort of a question. let me tell you. So let's make the strongest case that we can against Bernie Sanders. And again, this is as someone who voted for Bernie in the 2016 primary, and may well vote for him in the 2020 primary. Right now, my top choices, in no particular order, are Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Andrew Yang. What would I assess as the strongest arguments against Bernie? Number one, this is a lot of people don't know about this next thing, but one of the sort of conditions of many Bernie Sanders proposals in terms of how things would be paid for assume roughly 5% growth of the economy. And the problem with that is that what a lot of the Bernie Sanders style proposals are connected to is the idea that we can't count on indefinite growth or indefinite 5% growth. So if I, as someone who believes in most of Bernie's policies and believes that we have really good ideas about how to make those policies realities in terms of the cost and implementation, I think that we do have to be a little careful about predicating the implementation of those policies on a growth rate which many of us don't believe is sustainable. So I think that that is a strong question that can be raised about some of Bernie's proposals. Again, almost all of which I support and agree with. Number two, I sort of already mentioned this, and it relates in a way to age, and this is not a unique criticism to Bernie. And if you're just tuning in, I am telling you what I think are the strongest arguments that can be made against Bernie. I am not telling you that I am a subscriber to these arguments. The second argument that could be made sort of relates to what I said earlier, which is since Bernie mainstreamed many important policy ideas in 2016 relating to Medicare for all, tuition-free college, high marginal tax rates on top earners, although he didn't come up with that, obviously. There are now many other choices in the Democratic field that are very close to Bernie on those issues, which then makes us say, given the similarity on some of these policies, do we want to run another old guy against Donald Trump, who is an old guy? It's an identity argument. I don't like those arguments, but it is an argument that is going to be made, and it may be one of the ones that resonates with some people. I don't know. Lastly, is Bernie Sanders uniquely positioned to be more effective as president rather than in the Senate, versus is there someone who would allow Bernie to stay in the Senate as an effective progressive voice there while doing a lot of what Bernie would do in the White House? Those are what I see as the three strongest arguments against Bernie Sanders. If you want to make those arguments, those aren't arguments I'm looking to make, but it's important to understand what they would be. And they are far more minor issues than I have with, for example, Tulsi Gabbard on foreign policy, with Kamala Harris on a whole bunch of different issues, but some of her prior war on drugs comments, her work as California Attorney General. I mean, my qualms with Bernie are obviously much more limited, but I am at least trying to present some of what I see as possible arguments against Bernie Sanders. Let's see, what else did I want to touch on from the announcement? Number of articles saying this 2020 bid will undoubtedly be very different than his 2016 underdog race. I tend to agree with that, although I think that there is some good and some bad about that, and we can potentially dig into the details about that. The article mentions former Vice President Joe Biden. I think that the Biden thing is, I have no idea. So I spoke to a Bernie insider back in October, I believe it was, who told me Bernie's going to run. I have no idea what is going on with Joe Biden. There's speculation that he is going to run. He is polling very well. And again, with the caveat that the people that poll well in February of the year before the election often don't end up being the nominees, I do believe that if Joe Biden were to announce, he would be an immediate front runner alongside Bernie Sanders, one with pretty significantly within the context of the Democratic Party, different views. Biden definitely from a different wing of the Democratic Party. And that could alter the dynamics for Bernie Sanders in a way that would also be quite different than 2016, because it seems pretty clear to me that the dynamic of Bernie versus Hillary would be drastically different if it's Bernie versus Joe Biden with 10 other people running. So I think that there's no question that this is going to be a very, very different campaign for Bernie than 2016. Early fundraising numbers are really, really, really good for Bernie Sanders. I read, and I don't know that it's in this article. Let's see if it's been updated to include it. It talks about some of Bernie's policies. Doesn't seem like they mention it. I read that 4 hours into Bernie Sanders' announcement, he had already raised as much money as Kamala Harris raised in her first 24 hours after announcing. Part of that could be because we're a little bit closer to the election, although I don't think that that's a very strong argument. I think that there is just significantly more enthusiasm and a sort of built-in base for Bernie. I issued a sort of warning on today's broadcast show that we need to, before it even gets going, we need to make sure that we don't fall into the trap of the narcissism of small differences and start to sort of obsess over relatively minor differences between the candidates where it gets into smearing. There are certain Democratic candidates right now where there are significant differences, I would say, on foreign policy, on economic policy, less so, social policy, even less so. Let's not pretend that real differences don't matter, but let's not fall into the trap of getting overly concerned with relatively small differences. If I hear anything about if Bernie's not the nominee, I'm voting Trump or staying home, that's the kind of bullshit that got Donald Trump elected, along with many other things. Okay, when you only win by 70,000 votes across 3 states, a whole bunch of stuff can be blamed. We can talk about Comey's second statement about the Hillary's email stuff. We can talk about who knows what else, right? When it's such a small margin, there's a whole bunch of things we can say were the difference makers. But please, Democrats, progressive leaning independents, whatever. That's the exact last thing that we need to get involved in at this point. Absolute and total disaster in 2016 for the left, and I don't want to see it happen this time around. So before we get into the other big story that I wanted to talk about today, let me get to a couple of super chats. And I will remind you, if you have questions or comments for me, you can use the $ at the bottom of the chat window. They will come up on the screen. I will read them and I will answer them. The other thing, though, is if you want to call into the show, and it seems that there are a bunch of people who do want to, please, please, please sign up at davidpakman.com/membership. If we get 10 new members during the stream, this includes patrons, YouTube channel members, but most importantly, website members. If we get 10, I'll open up the phone lines. If you want to troll, that's the one time trolling is okay. If we've had 10 new members sign up and the phone lines get open and you really want to sit on hold for a while and eventually just troll me or try to catch me in some semantic or logic game, feel free. We have 2 coupon codes available right now. Whoa, what is that? So it's an extreme close-up of my hair. I don't know how that happened. Okay, let's back up. You will be able to use the coupon code. What was that? That was very, very strange. I apologize for that zoom in of my hair. The coupon code This Is 2020 will save you 40% off of any membership on our website. The coupon code SAVE35, which we launched on February 2nd, the day I turned 35. Very, very depressing day, but a lot of members signed up. The coupon code SAVE35 will save you $35 off of the $60 a year membership. That'll make your membership basically $2 a month, $25 for the year. All of this nonsense counts for getting the phone lines open. Okay, so let's do that. James Buccino sent a $5 super chat, the first of the evening. David, now that Bernie is officially in the race, who is your number one candidate running in the primaries? I don't know. It's still too early for me to decide. I don't think at this point we even know the full scope of everybody that might run, but there's no question whatsoever that my top three candidates, in no particular order, are Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Andrew Yang. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, more well known, certainly, than Andrew Yang, both members of the Senate, Northeast U.S. senators, very similar policy positions. Both I would argue, and I believe that most ranking websites agree, the two most progressive senators in the U.S. Senate right now end up on very similar policies. As I've said before, Elizabeth Warren, a more sort of establishment centrist originating point, has been pulled to the left. Bernie Sanders, originating at a more leftist, democratic socialist point of view, pulled a little bit towards pragmatism, I guess you would say, ending up in very, very similar places on the political spectrum. Andrew Yang, very different type of candidate, more of a entrepreneur background, successful, has not had to declare bankruptcy like our current president, and can go toe to toe with Donald Trump because of his business background in a way that arguably other candidates would not be able to. So those are my top three candidates right now: Andrew Yang, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. I don't know exactly when I'm going to decide who I am supporting in the primary, but I will absolutely let you know when I do. Just so everybody knows, I'm not going to play a game where I privately decide who I'm supporting in the primary, but then just kind of like continue to cover the primary without disclosing that. As soon as I know who I'm supporting, I will let you know, and it will be sort of known in the context of my coverage of the 2020 primary. It's a weird scrolling there. Gino Chiriboga. How does Bernie Sanders distance himself from the rest of the Democratic pool of candidates when so many of the candidates are just as left-leaning as him? Number one, Gino, I challenge that so many of the candidates are as less left-leaning as Bernie Sanders. I'm not sure who actually is. Okay, Andrew Yang, I think, actually is as left as Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren is close, but I can't think of other candidates that are as left as Bernie. That's number one. I think the way he distinguishes himself is by saying, I won primaries in 2016, period. He won primaries, and whether he wants to play up how the DNC treated him in 2016, I don't know. From a strategic perspective, I don't know if that's advantageous. But Bernie can immediately come in and say, I know how to raise money. I did it in 2016. I won a bunch of primaries. I'm the only person running who won primaries in 2016. I've already been on the receiving end of what it's like to be on Trump's radar in this way for a while, although Elizabeth Warren can say that as well. And that's one way that he can distinguish himself immediately. Number two, the way fundraising has gone for him in the first few hours of his candidacy, he can make the case that on the financial side, he is also positioned to do well and to actually have a budget to seriously spend, and which in our current status quo, you need to be able to do. Just crushing Kamala Harris, tying her first 24 hours of fundraising in just his first four today. That's a big deal. Enco, what should the Venezuelan people do to oust Nicolas Maduro? I don't know. He needs to go, but we don't want the U.S. to get in there and start making decisions, because that's been historically disastrous for Latin America. If you don't have fair elections and Maduro has the support of the government, the military rather, what can the average person do? We like to say, well, just get a majority to vote him out. Doesn't seem like that's actually going to get him out in Venezuela, given what's going on. So I wish I had the answer, Enco, but I don't. SRXT09. What are the odds that Bernie supporters who voted for Trump, whatever that percentage is, come back to support him? You know, it's sort of vile to even think about the idea of being a Bernie supporter and then voting for Trump. I know that they exist. I don't know what percentage they are, and I hope that it's a very small percentage. Um, I mean, I hope that they have the sense to say, I supported Bernie in 2016. Trump's been a disaster, and a total embarrassment on the international stage. So I'm back to supporting Bernie. And hopefully, this time, if Bernie is not the nominee, they won't say, I'll vote for Trump's reelection. But, it's between cognitive dissonance and our tendency for making gut decisions and rationalizing them after the fact, what's called post hoc rationalization. I think that however small the percentage of 2016 Bernie supporters is that ultimately voted for Trump, they may well vote for Donald Trump again, and it's sad and unfortunate. Eagle Lloyd says, "You're 34. What's your secret, dude?" No, I'm not. I'm 35. 35. I don't really have a secret. I guess it's just living. I don't know. I wish I had something else. But on that note, I mentioned that we have a coupon code available. The code is SAVE35. Because I turned 35 on February 2nd, the coupon code SAVE35 will drop a $60 membership by $35 to only $25. We have one person who has signed up on our website with that code, and that's Kevin Wheeler. We are looking for 9 more members. If we get 9 members, I will open the phone lines. The phone lines are not screened. So if you disagree with me, if you are angry with me, if you want to confront me, it's all fair game when the phone lines open. And we are looking for 10 new members. If you like this program, if you think what we're doing is valuable, if you like that we at our cost distribute the show to 200 nonprofit radio and television stations around the country, we're talking about $2 a month. Okay. Use the coupon code SAVE35. That will make your membership $25 a year, or only $2, and it's a dollar divided by 12, like 8 cents. It's like $2.08 a month for everything that we provide, including the live streams, which I will continue to do for as long as they are successful. Coupon code SAVE35, 9 more, and I'll open up the phone lines for you guys. And I actually have some time today. I'd be able to stay on the phones for probably longer than usual because I've got a little time this evening. Bez Pay sends a $2 super chat. As a progressive Jew, it will be Hisatric, #win. Well, in a literal sense, Bernie being president or even the nominee would be historic in that we've not had a Jewish Democratic nominee or major party nominee at all. And we've obviously never had a Jewish president. So you are literally saying something that's true. Jacob Ball says, David, hasn't the idea that Sanders supporters voted for Trump in significant numbers been thoroughly debunked? Of course it has, Jacob. Yeah. So to go back up to the question from SRXT09, who said, whatever percentage of Bernie supporters voted for Trump, are they going to come back and support Bernie? I agree with you, Jacob. It's a very small number. I just don't know exactly what it is. So I can't really say with any more specificity, but I think I remember I met one guy. We went up to, this is kind of a funny story. And because the channel has grown so much since the 2016 primaries, former producer Lewis and I drove up to New Hampshire on the day of the New Hampshire primary. And we went to polling places and we went to different watch parties and interviewed people. And there was a guy I met, and the interview with him is on the YouTube channel. I don't know how you find it. You've got to search for, I don't know, New Hampshire primaries, interviews, something like that. He said that he supported Bernie, but ultimately is supporting Donald Trump. He was completely incoherent. I still don't understand. It's been years. I still don't understand what on earth was going on. I think he may have been cognitively not completely there. I don't understand any. I've never heard a sensible explanation for voting for Bernie in the primary, other than just trolling and then voting for Donald Trump in the general. J Dog sends a $5 super chat. Do you plan on reading or listening to McCabe's book, The Threat? I bought it on Audible and I'm liking it so far. Feels pretty similar to Comey's book. Honestly, J-Dog, probably not. I tend not to read those memoir tell-all type books because I have so much stuff to read that is sort of topic oriented, or the sort of life story books I read are usually not as political. Like I recently read Escape from Camp 14, the story of a North Korean prisoner who was born into one of the prison camps and escaped. That is much more appealing to kind of like disconnect from the type of politics I do on the show day to day than reading something like McCabe's book. I've not read Comey's book. I've not read Obama's book or Hillary's book or I've never read any of those. Madeleine Albright, who I'm told has a fantastic memoir. So I probably won't read it. I've got a lot of stuff on the nightstand and the coffee table, so to speak. Let me say thank you to Karsten Sethry, who has just signed up at davidpakman.com/membership using the coupon code SAVE35 and has gotten a membership for just 25 bucks, $2.08 for the year. I also want to say thanks to Palmer P. Palmer P has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. I mentioned that there are two coupon codes available. This is 2020 drops any membership 40%. Okay, so like with the $6 a month membership, you can get it for $3.60 a month with the coupon code This is 2020. However, if you want like the best deal going, which expires Friday, apply the coupon code SAVE35 to the $60 a year membership, which will drop it to 25 bucks. 25 bucks for the year. Keep it for as long as you want. And if we get 10 new members, I'm ready to open up the phone lines. Let's see if I can show this to you. No, I can't. No. Okay. I was going to show you that I have the phone dashboard up and ready to go. 7 more new members, and I will open up the phone lines and take phone calls from folks. Alexander Reed with a 50 Norwegian kroner, I never remember, super chat. So just a question, when exactly do you film your show, time of day? Since the Friday that Stone was arrested, you did not discuss that. The show is typically filmed at noon, sometimes earlier. Sometimes the interview is filmed a little bit later if the guest is delayed or has a particular schedule or is like in an earlier time zone. So yeah, depending on what's going on each week, sometimes we do miss a story in the most timely sense and then discuss it later. But when that happens, I've been pretty good about live streaming. So we sort of make up for it. Erythropathak says, can you do the Boston accent? I can't. I was born in Argentina, learned English as a second language in a different part of Massachusetts that doesn't have the Boston accent. So I can't do it, unfortunately. I apologize. Halcyon Sunset says, so let's say Bernie wins. How does he actually get the policies we want pushed through such a corporatized Congress? Fair point. This is why I raised the question that some are emailing me with, which is, are we not better off with Bernie in the Senate? Is he not better able to get things done there than he would as president? I think it's not the best argument against Bernie, but it's a fair question. This is the importance of getting not only the House, but also the Senate, which is possible in 2020, but not by any means a guarantee. And the White House. You really need all three. And this is why we need to vote no matter where you are, no matter what is up for reelection in your particular district or state. This is an uphill battle that we're going to have to deal with for sure. Greg the Tech God. Bernie has a huge issue with the black vote. Hillary destroyed him in 2016. What does he need to do to get the black vote? A couple different things there. Number one, Hillary's not running right now. And yes, there are other candidates that you could argue are going to be more easily able to coalesce the black vote. I already got a bunch of emails from people saying, David, Bernie has already lost South Carolina. Not a single vote has been cast in the Democratic primary, but Bernie is simply not going to win South Carolina. I think that is so. Okay, let me sort of kind of like reframe here. 3 months ago or 2 months ago or whatever, I said, let's not play any electability games with the Democratic primary. Let's just focus on policy. Late last week, early this week, I said, now it's okay to start to think about how the policy impacts electability to some degree within the context of the Democratic primary, not like what's going to happen against Trump, but within the context of the Democratic primary. I believe that Bernie and the black vote is way too granular and micro for the stage at which we find ourselves in February of the year before the election. So I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is I don't think that's where the focus should be right now. Reggie Waco has signed up as a YouTube channel member, which is 4 new members for the evening. I have a few other new members to thank. Whoa, a lot. So 4 was Reggie Waco. Number 5 is Alex Kazai. Alex Kazai is today's 5th new member of the evening. Amanda Trumbull is number 6 this evening. Amanda, thank you. Gary McEwen is number 7. Jacob Kilpack is number 8. Kyle Engel is number 9. Seems like I'm going to be taking a lot of phone calls today. And we are very quickly only 1 new member away from me opening up the phone lines. davidpakman.com/membership. Let's make it happen. This could be a record for how quickly it's all coming together. Soleil Un. Okay. $5 super chat. I just want to take this opportunity to publicly say this. Contribute to Bernie Sanders' campaign. I've contributed $30 and I will send more. All right. Thank you for the message. James Buccino, this was just commented. I voted for Bernie in 2016, then voted for Trump in the general because I knew what I was getting with Trump and Hillary was a war hawk. If it's Kamala versus Trump, I'd do the same. We're fucked. Wow. We're fucked. Yep. There's no other reaction I could possibly have to that. John Towery, $10 super chat. Most of my family are Trumpers. The 5% who aren't are busy on Facebook today, ranting about Sanders' announcement saying he tanked Clinton's campaign. WTF, I thought I'd have friends, Bernie 2020. Yeah, John, I'm finding myself a little bit depressed myself by some of what I've been seeing on Facebook since Bernie's announcement. We just have to push forward. I mean, that we've just got to keep pushing forward for the time being and hope that in the end, rationality will prevail and people will realize that every single Democratic candidate right now, even the crappy ones, are better than Donald Trump. Derek Busby, Bernie Bro story will return now that Bernie announced. How should Bernie supporters push back? Also, friends say, if you support the black vote, then vote with black people. Friends says, if you support the black vote, then vote with black people. That could be interpreted syntactically like 5 different ways, and I'm not going to get into that. I think the way that Bernie supporters should push back is by saying, hey, you know what? All of these black-white hostile declarations from 2016 did not serve us well. We ended up with Trump, and let's not fall into it again. I don't know. I don't know what else to say at this point other than if you still, the Bernie Bro narrative. The Bernie Bro narrative itself was a problem, and also people who said it's Bernie or bust were also a problem, even if they were relatively few in number. Some of the Bernie primary supporters did ultimately stay home. Some tiny percentage did vote for Trump. It's all part of the problem. It all led to, along with the Comey nonsense right before the election, along with Hillary not going to some of the key states at the end, a whole host of reasons, one of which was what Bernie supporters did, myself not included as a Bernie supporter who did vote for Hillary Clinton. None of those mistakes can be made in 2020 because the stakes are simply too high. Okay, we are 1 member away, 1 new member away from me opening up the phone lines. Let me just tease one more time. If you've been thinking about supporting the program, if you like what we do, if you are one of our nearly now 600,000 subscribers who is enjoying and values what we put out, consider getting a membership, because membership is the #1 funding source for our show. Membership makes us independent of what happens with YouTube funding. It makes us independent of what happens with ad revenue. I turned 35 a couple of weeks ago. We set up the coupon code SAVE35 on that day. That code expires Friday. That code saves you $35 on a $60 a year membership. Okay. I'm not going to play what I call latte games with you. Latte games are where I say, if you spend $4 a month at Starbucks, why not spend $2 a month on a membership? I think our audience is smart enough to understand that 25 bucks for an entire year of programming, thousands of hours of programming, is a relatively good deal. I think it's a good deal. Take advantage of it at davidpakman.com/membership. One more new member, and I will open up the phone lines. And I'm looking forward to hearing from people about Bernie and about a whole bunch of other stuff. 10 Will Dude says, why would some Democrats be unhappy with Bernie because he's an independent when the Democratic Party is such a broad church in terms of policy anyway? Listen, I don't. Okay. If the DNC wants to pass a rule that says to gain the Democratic nomination, you have to be a Democrat, I actually don't have a problem with that. Those are their rules to play with. The problem I have with establishment Democratic Party stuff is if you claim to be an unbiased arbiter of the primary, be an unbiased arbiter of the primary, period. Okay? If you're not going to be an unbiased arbiter, that's also okay. You set the rules. We're not talking about criminal liability here. Just tell us you're picking someone to begin with. If people, I don't think it's a good argument to say I'm not going to support Bernie in the primary because he's not a Democrat. That doesn't make sense to me. But if the Democratic Party says you've got to be registered as a Democrat in order to be the nominee, they can do it, and it'll have whatever impact it has. How can we could disagree with it, but it's absolutely their prerogative to do it. Okay, Andrew Gray is a new YouTube channel member. Thank you, Andrew. Friendly Neighborhood Roofer Man sends $1 with no question or comment. Thank you. Val McClinchy sends a $3 super chat from the first zip code. Okay, I think that's a reference to when someone called in the other day from Agawam, Massachusetts, which is zip code, I think it's like 01001. Which is the first zip code in the country. Thanks, Val. Appreciate that. And Daniel Kahn has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. So that makes 10, actually 11 new members today during the stream. So I promised I would do it, and I'm going to do it. I'm opening up the phone lines to you at 617-830-4750. People want to get queued up, I will start taking calls shortly. Jan Rogalka has also signed up on our website. Thanks, Jan. Really appreciate that. That's 12 new members today during the stream. Very, very strong showing. I appreciate that. 617-830-4750 is the number. I will go to phone calls soon, but please keep signing up. Keep sending super chats because I will dip back into those while we take calls. Will there be angry people on today's phones? We will see. Let me just get set up here. Okay, we are almost set. Whoa, I just exposed some people's phone numbers, which I did not mean to do. Apologize about that. That was a mistake. Please don't start calling people who are holding on because that's not good at all. Let me just get to the first phone call. Please don't troll our viewers, okay? I that was a mistake, and maybe we can edit that out from the archived version. I accidentally flashed some people's phone numbers up on the screen. Don't go back and pause it and start calling those people. They're good people. Okay, let's see here. I think we are mostly ready to go at 617-830-4750. Let's go first to the 262 area code. Who's there from 262 today? And actually, let me turn you up a bit. 262, what's going on?
Can you hear me?
We can. We're not on speakerphone, are we?
Can you hear me now?
Were we on speakerphone?
No, I have my headphone in.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead. Who's this?
I'm so sorry, man. No, this is my name is Juan. I'm from Wisconsin.
All right, go ahead, Juan.
And First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for that video you did where you were talking about how we could pay for a lot of the progressive programs we did
Oh, my pleasure.
or that we want to do. So
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you for watching it.
I noticed that a lot of it just seems like Bernie Sanders, even though his recognition this year is a lot more high than it was in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like the DNC is going to screw him over again. I mean, what do you think would be the best option? Say Bernie Sanders is blackballed this year. Other
I
than
think
Bernie
it's
Sanders.
going to be very difficult to do that to Bernie this time around for two reasons. Juan, number one, because it happened in 2016 and there was outrage, arguably not as much as there should have been. But now I feel as though it's going to be much more difficult to get away with it early on. And number two, Bernie's name recognition and fundraising ability is orders of magnitude greater than it was when he announced in 2016. So I think for that reason, it's also not to the advantage of some of the forces that led to that in 2016 to do it. So it might be naive, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I don't think that it's going to happen, at least not in the same way this time around.
Yeah, and I just got a bunch of texts from people, so yeah, I think my number got exposed.
Oh dear, I really apologize about that. Please stop texting Juan.
No,
Juan, thank you for the phone
no,
call.
it's
I'm going to
okay,
let you
man.
go. Yeah, so for people who are just joining, for like a split second, I switched to the wrong thing and exposed some people's phone numbers who are holding. And I really apologize about that. We've never had anything like that happen on the show. And if you want to troll anyone, troll me. Please don't start calling people. I need to put in place some kind of fail safe so that doesn't happen again. Let me say a quick thank you to Paul Taco or Tacho, not sure how it's pronounced, who sent a $1.99 super chat. Black Wave 54 sent a $9.99 super chat saying, "Your Bernie got that blicky Trumpito he be crappin' gang gang." Yeah, I mean, extremely poetic. Ella Grasso says hashtag gay sex with Ben Shapiro. Okay. Jeremy Nichols says, "Is there anyone more progressive than Bernie running or who might run?" I think Bernie is at least tied for the most progressive right now. And I don't know of anyone who has a serious shot that would be more progressive. Ella Grasso says hashtag gay sex with Jordan Peterson. Why Bo Jesus says, "What's the best way to respond to the inevitable centrist attacks that Bernie's policies are too radical? Say that polling shows they are not too radical. Aside from citing polls that show that the majority of Americans agree with things like Medicare for all." No, that's the way to say many Americans agree with this stuff. And many countries at our level of development have this stuff. They're doing fine. We would do fine. This isn't radical. The radicalization is thinking that that stuff is outside of the mainstream. Roy Earl says, "Do I think Bernie could restore relations with Iran if he's elected president? Potentially. Also, you should visit Canada. Would love to meet you." I go to Montreal yearly. I want to go to Quebec City. Other than that, I don't have too much Canada experience other than, like, I think I went to Toronto when I was a kid and maybe Ottawa. Okay, let's take the next caller. Thanks to Nassim Sarwar, by the way, who just signed up for a David Pakman Show membership. Let's go to our caller from the 360 area code. Who's there from 360?
Hi, is it me?
That is you, yeah. Now, are you on speakerphone? Because your phone's atrocious.
No, I don't like. I just while I was listening, I had it on speaker.
Got it. Okay. Who's this? Who's calling here?
Okay. I'm Vinci. I'm from Washington State. I wanted to ask you, David. So I feel like we give like, what's the word I'm looking for? We give too much like leeway to what we call like centrist and like, with their supposed added touchness. Like, I just feel like what's really going on is like all the big money in politics is about keeping the left out. And, you see it with Bernie's campaign and all that. And I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm not sure I understand. What do you mean? What do you mean about the centrist stuff? I'm not sure I understood that.
Well, I feel okay. Yeah, I should have explained that better. It's like calling them centrist is kind of uh, like sort of going easy on them. I feel like it's sort of to me, it's like they're just right wingers. Like they're kind of just for the elites and
Like who?
defending
Who are you
like
talking about specifically?
like like I don't. I like like Kamala Harris, maybe Kirsten Gillibrand, like Chuck
You think
Schumer
that they're
type,
straight
Nancy
up
Pelosi.
right wingers? You're saying they're not centrist or center left. They're on the right. You're saying.
Uh, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't think like it's easy. I know it's not like it's going into that like spiritual territory that like that's why like even my family they don't like to listen to it, so I kind of
Well,
like
it's not a conspiracy. It's just a matter of what. So, like, what are their right wing policies that you would point to?
I would point to just like like not like a right, so maybe even right wing. Like you're a kind of smart guy, so it's like maybe I'm being a little infactual here,
Hmm.
but it's like just the incrementalism, sort of like we'll do this in 5 years we'll be able to be progressive enough. Like we just got to keep
Mm.
like at it, and that it's like you're saying like it's not. I mean, these aren't radical ideas, like, and they're gaining momentum, and it just seems like all the effort that could be spent like implementing these policies, advocating for these policies, is rather spent stonewalling them and just lying
Yeah.
about
So
it,
listen,
spreading
Benji, I think
misinformation.
you okay. So a couple different things. One, incrementalism is not necessarily right wing. Ted Kennedy was an incrementalist, and he was extraordinarily
Yeah.
effective in the U.S. Senate. He wasn't the most progressive guy, but incrementalism, I don't think, is a sign of being a right winger. What you're right about
Okay.
is that if you are coming in with a centrist position, there's no chance you're going to do something progressive. That's where I think you and I probably agree. Even if it's unlikely that unless you get the House and Senate, you can do Medicare for all, at least come in with that position, because if you don't, the chance is zero of being able to do it. So I think we probably would be on the same page, is that what you're frustrated about with centrists is that you're already conceding away even the mere possibility of doing something progressive. And I agree with you. That's why we've got to vote for someone that actually represents our values and aligns with our positions.
Just the whole like thing I was saying about like I guess this is just my perception again, and I might not be as elegant as you, and I try to be. It's just I I don't know. It just seems like it's just normalized. Like this is socialism. This is authoritarian. Like right. I hear all the time like from my right wing friends that the left is the fascist ones, and it's just eye rolling because it's like they don't. It's that's
And
just
don't even engage
that's
with that nonsense.
inaccurate.
Listen, those people are never going to vote for whoever you're going to vote for. Just focus on getting people who already are on your side to the polls, and
Oh,
don't
we
even
totally
argue
agree
with
on
that
that.
nonsense. Don't even argue with them.
Yeah, we
Benji, I got to run. I got a
totally.
lot of people holding, but I really do appreciate the call. Let's see. Let's go next to, we've got a lot of people holding. Let's go to the 980 area code. Who's calling from 980 today?
Hey, this is Eddie Harkinson. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead, Eddie.
Okay, cool. All right, David. Hey, man, I love your show.
Thank you.
I'm good. I'm good job, buddy, on YouTube there. I was just about to send you a super chat. I'll wait.
Oh,
But,
sorry I interrupted.
Yeah, no, I'll get to you on the back side. I'm an old radio guy actually, and
Oh, cool.
I found you, I guess, maybe about a year. I don't know how long ago it was, but first of all, I want to say, I want to get this out there. Donald Trump is going to boil down to his base. He is doing that. He's doing a perfect job of ruining himself. And I believe that he brought out a whole lot of first-time voters when he ran in 2016. People who never been interested in politics before. They just wanted to throw a big, as Michael Moore put it, a Molotov cocktail at the U.S. government.
Right.
And I think that he's doing that on his own. He's hurting himself. What I hope doesn't happen is that we spread the enthusiasm so thin between all these Democrats that because it seemed like when I do believe if Bernie would have got the nomination, Bernie could have beat him. I think that he was more a better candidate. But and then when Hillary got the nomination, by whichever means she got the nomination, it seemed to spurn a lot of Bernie supporters, and I don't know that we regrouped after that. And
Okay,
so,
so listen, I mean, as far as that goes,
okay.
what you have to also remember is that by being elected, Donald Trump also brought a lot of opposition that has never voted before into the political fray. And what the question now is, are they going to vote in 2020? And that's really my concern. So, yeah, listen, you're not wrong. Donald Trump got people who never cared about politics to go out and vote by appealing to everything we know that he appealed to. Those people, if they vote in 2020, are almost guaranteed to vote for Trump again to such a rate that we shouldn't even worry about them, forget about them. The question is the first thing you mentioned. What will be the
And what I
impact
wonder,
of people in
it,
the Democratic primary who don't get their candidate in there as the nominee? What are they going to do on election day? Because if they stay home, that's a real problem for Democrats.
what I like about Andrew Yang is that he, and I think he said this on the Joe Rogan show, was that as long as his ideas can be picked up and carried, he's okay with whomever our candidate is.
Right.
And my question to you is, do you think that Bernie Sanders would be supportive of what's the I forget the basic income?
Oh, yeah, I
The
don't see why he wouldn't be in particular. Listen, from what we saw from Bernie in 2016, if he doesn't win, he will say, we've got to get Trump out, vote for the nominee, period. As far as UBI, I think, I'm not sure. I don't know what Bernie has said about UBI in the past. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about Bernie's going to do the right thing if he doesn't win. The question is, what are all of the Democratic voters going to do if their guy or gal is not the eventual nominee?
Cool. I love your show, man, and I'm hoping that it's either Bernie or Andrew. Right now, those are the two I love a lot.
All right. Okay, Eddie, thank you. Yeah, Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang, and Elizabeth Warren right now are my top three. And when I decide, I will let you know. Hey, we got someone from the 413 area code, from the home of the David Pakman show. Who's there from 413? Hello, 413? 413, we can hear just a little trickle of something in the background. I don't know what's going on.
Hello, this is Josh from Massachusetts.
Hey, Josh, where are you calling from?
Massachusetts.
Oh,
So
God.
I have a
Perfect.
question that's a tad less
Exactly what I
related
meant.
to
Go ahead, Josh.
this. It's more of a scientific question, actually.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
by
I'm
the
not
way,
a scientist,
can you
but
hear me? All right, yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering. I haven't heard you talk about this on the show, so I was just wondering how much you know about this. I'll try to keep this short. I could go on for hours, but
please
anyway.
don't, though.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, there's an issue in America of sleep deprivation. It costs the economy $411 billion per year. Rand Corporation report. That's Rand Corporation. Rand Corporation estimated every high school and middle school started at 8:30 later would lead to 124 billion growth in GDP over 20 years. The costs are increased risk of diabetes later in life, heart attacks, reduced academic performance, reduced athletic performance, including reduced cardiovascular capacity, increased risk of athletic injuries, decreased sprinting speed. Academic includes reduced memory effectiveness, both with hippocampus, which is the short-term memory and box of the brain. Long-term memory, basically that's REM sleep, and that would transfer to the cortex. Leading UK sleep expert Paul Kelly calls this torture. Yeah, so I was just wondering, what do you know about this? Do you agree that high schools should start later? What do you think should be done about this in the general economy? Do you think there should be protections for workers? Because this is a tremendous cost to the economy and our society.
I do believe that this is a problem. I've discussed it on the program before. I think schools should start later. I think we've got to recognize that the sort of natural schedules of teenagers and preteens are not matching up to school schedules. And I would love to see this issue dealt with head on for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much for taking my call.
All right, Josh, thank you. 617-830-4750 is where we are taking phone calls. Let me go through a couple of these super chats that have popped up. This don't care says, do you think the Bernie wants to change America into Venezuela rhetoric could harm him? I fear the fear mongering could be pretty effective. Yeah, I mean, nobody who would be voting for Bernie in the primary or would even potentially be voting for Bernie in the primary would fall for that, maybe in the general election, but who knows if Venezuela is even really going to be an issue then? And of course, it's transparently untrue. Sean Geis says, and did I mispronounce that again? Does Bernie running reduce the chances of Biden running? No, I don't think so. I think Joe Biden's going to decide independently of Bernie. The whole shift to the populist left rhetoric might turn him off from the race, a good thing. I don't know. I mean, listen, Joe Biden is to my right, but we need someone who can defeat Trump, and Joe Biden's polling well, although that's not exactly how we want to be deciding right now. Yeah. So I'm not sure about that. Okay, let's go to our caller from the 925 area code. Caller from 925. Who's this?
Yo, what's up?
Hey, who's this?
Hi, David.
Hi.
Oh, I'm Tejas from California. I think we talked last time about taxes.
All right, what's on your mind today?
My question today was about educational reform, the educational system as a whole. So what I noticed is that we're spending a lots of money per individual, much more than other countries, yet other countries tend to have much better results. They're much better in math, much better in science.
Yep.
And along with this, I feel like, I know this is my opinion, but I feel like there's a culture in America where education isn't as valued as in other countries. So I was wondering, what reforms could we make in education in order to improve our system?
Well, there's a divide on education in the United States, because on the one hand, you have many of the best colleges and universities in the world are in the United States. Okay. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is that for both class and economic reasons, and because there's been a movement to cast aspersions on education as liberal indoctrination, you have a movement that either doesn't have access to or doesn't want to participate in the education system. One of the effects that we're seeing is, as you're saying, we are spending more and getting worse results in many areas. The reforms that need to happen are different at the K through 12 level versus in colleges and universities. Okay, so K through 12, we have to bring back and rethink some of what's being taught. The absence of critical thinking, civics, intro philosophy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we would be much better off as a country if we introduced to students during the K through 12 phase. That's number one. Number two, we do have to look at poorly paid teachers. We have to look at incentives. We have to look at the entire way that schools are funded and financed. At the college level, something has to be done about the cost of college as well as the student loan problem.
Yeah. And also, I also feel like with K through 12 education, I feel like it's much more conventional in the sense that technology is it's not as effective to have, in a sense, it's not the system we have right now is not as effective, because we could be implementing technology in many different ways into the schooling system to teach different skills. So that was also another idea that
Okay, very good idea. We will continue covering education policy. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. We're taking calls at 617-830-4750. Let's see what looks interesting. There's a lot of people holding, not too many who have called before. Let's go to country code 44. That seems interesting. Who's calling from country code 44?
Hi there, David. My name is Sonny.
Hey, where are you calling from, Sonny?
I'm calling from Stirling in Scotland.
Very nice. What's going on?
So my question to you is, basically, since the rise of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and now Bernie Sanders has just announced his campaign,
right?
Arguments about social democracy and democratic socialism, I feel like these are getting conflated between a lot of American voters and also voters across the pond here.
Yes.
So I was wondering what your take on this is.
Well, I've been speaking out about this for years. Democratic socialism and social democracy are two different things. We can't really have a debate over which one we want if we don't understand the difference. And I know that every time I talk about this, Sonny, people write to me and they say, David, listen, strictly speaking, you're right. But at this point, can't we just accept that when people say democratic socialism, they usually means social democracy? And the answer is no, we really can't, because we're actually talking about two different things. And when you have a president here who is fear mongering about socialism and how we will never become socialist, he said at his State of the Union address. It's important that we distinguish between socialism and social democracy. And I won't go through explaining all the differences now, but to make it very succinct, democratic socialism is socialism. Social democracy is a mixed economy that is capitalist and has markets, but chooses to support social welfare programs significantly to ensure no one is left behind. So, Sonny, I think this is a major problem, and we're not going to have good conversations about what we should do if we don't even understand what the options are and what they're called.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Because it happens in the UK as well. We've got Jeremy Corbyn as leader of our Labour Party,
right?
And we know that he is a democratic socialist, but we also know that his policies are social democratic as opposed to democratic socialism. Now, another question I have is, I watched the State of the Union address, and the statement from Donald Trump that said, America will never be a socialist country.
Yeah.
That really, what I'm wondering is there any truth to that? Is there, because how can you know in the next many years or so?
He can't. Oh, he can't. Of course. I mean, it's a ridiculous statement. I mean, it's an insane thing to say because, number one, who knows what the United States is going to be like in another 200 years? So it's a dumb thing to say. But also, right now, there's no threat from socialism, if you see it as a threat. There's no big clamoring for the United States to become an actual socialist country, which socializes the means of production and makes it so that it's not happening anytime soon. So in that sense, he doesn't need to protect us from it. At the same time, it could happen in 200 years, and he would have no way of actually telling us accurately that it's not going to happen. It was just red meat, Sonny.
Yeah. So do you think the left could run into many problems trying to kind of make a very good argument for socialism in America today, for instance?
Well, you're saying if they started to actually make that argument?
If they started to make the for my first question, to like conflate the complete definitions of the two different ideologies, could that be a problem for the left wing?
The left shouldn't conflate it. The left has got to get that figured out, and whether it's AOC, Bernie, his followers, her followers, whoever. We got to use the right terms, because otherwise we're just digging ourselves into a hole. Sonny, great to hear from you from Scotland. I appreciate the call.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. We got on a delay there just at the last second. Okay, let's go to the 317 area code. Caller from 317. Who's this?
Hi, David. This is Zach from Indiana.
Hey, Zach. What's going on?
So I have two questions regarding electoral reform. I think a lot of the issues we have around campaign finance reform and some of their solutions, like ending gerrymandering, mixed member districts, publicly financed elections, and like a ranked choice national popular vote, a lot of those would require amending the Constitution, which would require 2/3 in the House and Senate. And I think with the way the Senate in particular is structured, that is highly unlikely to pass. Do you think that a potential 2020 candidate should push for an amendment versus trying to shift the Supreme Court and bring court cases to affect those? Or
listen, there are other ways to do it. So you're right. I mean, that you're talking about. Let me just give you two alternatives, and I'm not saying they're likely, but here's two alternatives. Number one, you can do ranked choice. States can decide to do ranked choice. And for local elections, there are some places that have already done it. That would circumvent the need for a constitutional amendment. When it comes to a national popular vote, you can circumvent a constitutional amendment by, there's already something in place called the National Popular Vote Interstate Complex or Compact. I forget exactly what the C stands for. I think it's an agreement of sorts. If you get enough states whose electoral votes total 270 to say, we will award our electoral votes not to the candidate that wins our state, but to our candidate that wins the national popular vote. You sort of create a de facto national popular vote. So there are other ways. Are they more or less likely than a constitutional amendment? I don't know, but there are options.
Yeah, I think the appeal to me of a constitutional amendment is that it gives you kind of the framework for providing, you know, broader changes beyond a single issue like the interstate compact.
Yeah.
But my second question was if the path we decide to go down, kind of as the left, is to push for a constitutional amendment, do you think it would be better to try to push that through Congress or to put pressure on state governments to call an Article 5 convention to amend the Constitution?
Well, don't you need more? Don't you need a combination of Congress and states to be on board?
My understanding is that if 2/3 of state legislatures pass a bill calling for an Article 5 convention, each, you know, once that total has been hit, then the convention is called regardless of the will of Congress. I think the idea being that if Congress is dragging their heels to pass an amendment, then state governments can take it into their hands to kind of force the amendment to be addressed.
Okay, you may be right. I may just be underinformed on that. I thought it had to be both, but I will look into that.
Okay, that was all I had.
Okay, great. Thank you for the call. Really appreciate it. Let me address a couple of other super chats that came in. Do I think that Glenn Beck's, let's see, yes. Are there estimates for early childcare costs? I'm sure there are, but I don't have them. Austin Blanton, thank you. Roy Early says, do I think Glenn Beck's recent support of Trump is purely economical? You should do a segment on him again. His meltdowns are hilarious. I didn't know Glenn Beck was around anywhere, honestly. I don't even know where to find his stuff, but I'd be interested in checking that out. And I couldn't tell you why he's supporting Trump. Good job, buddy, says Bernie or Andrew, supporting Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang. Ella Grasso says Bernard Sanders legalized dank weed cannabis, #Kush. Okay. Miko Pispala says, what is your take on Joe Rogan racist rants? I haven't seen that. I would like to see that, though. Racist rants. That sounds wild. Don't know, but I would like to check that out. Zendicrust says, is there a way to prompt mass shift among firms toward more democratic, egalitarian, pseudo-syndicalist forms of organization? The way to prompt it without a sort of authoritarian imposition of a different structure mandated by the government would be through the tax code and through regulation. You can make changes to regulatory code and tax code that would incentivize, or it would incentivize more what you're talking about, or at least de-incentivize the sort of vulture capitalist status quo that reigns supreme in so many of America's biggest corporations. Let's take another call. Let's go to the 707 area code. Who's calling from 707 today?
Is this me?
That is you.
All right. So since the progressive lane is so crowded in the Democratic race to nomination, how quickly do you think other progressives need to drop out and yield to like one progressive to become the nominee instead of a moderate like Biden or Harris?
Fair question. I think the time for that has not yet come. And I don't know exactly when it will, but I think it will sort of become self-evident. But I wouldn't worry about that right now. These things have a way of sort of naturally working themselves out. In the 2016 primary, there were concerns about, is Bernie staying in too long? This is hurting the Democrats. In the end, I think everybody sort of got out when it made sense to get out. And it's just never really been a problem. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
All right. I agree. Have a great day. I love your show.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the call. Sixes sends a $6.66 super chat. Kind of hard to say. $6.66 super chat. Bernie will take everyone down with him just like last time. I don't remember that happening. Fuad says, David the Pac-Man is a legend now. Fuad, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's go to the 515 area code. That's an area code I don't really recognize. Where's 515 from?
Hi, David. This is Fauna Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, I'm from Hana Laura, but that's close enough.
Sorry, did you say it's Hana Laura?
That's correct.
Oh,
Thanks.
okay.
I'm a little nervous. I really love your show. My zip code is from Des Moines, Iowa, but
Oh, wow.
I actually live in Southeast Iowa. So,
Cool. So what's going on?
So I wanted to talk about marijuana policy,
Okay.
and hoping that I realize it's kind of like on the bottom of the list of important things that need to happen, but I'm hoping that it comes along with a progressive in office, in the next presidency. But I wanted to share just a little bit about like why it's ridiculous to be charging people with marijuana. Just with if you don't mind, a couple of stories of myself and my friends. This happened a long time ago. I was for a long time a single parent and had a lot of health problems from an accident I had when I was a kid. So I ended up in a lot of chronic pain and kind of gave up on Western medicine for a while because I was just kind of like the medications would lead to something else. So I just kind of decided at one point, I'm just going to use weed even though it's illegal to deal with my pain. And so the first time that I got in trouble, I actually went to a counselor and said, I'm having a hard time. I feel like I'm relying too much on smoking weed and want to be a better parent and all that. Well, I didn't get out of the office without DHS being there. And I didn't get charged that time, but it was like I was under their care for like 7 months. And I would have been put on I was put on the child abuse registry, and it was because smoking weed is considered denial of critical care. And because I had admitted that to them in my interview with DHS after trying to get help, I, would have been on the list for 10 years as a child abuser, which is pretty ridiculous. And as soon as I got through the DHS process, I got appealed the founding, and when it went to a judge and was dismissed like immediately without much discussion.
Yeah.
So that ended up okay, but it's like
Hello? Did you get muted or something? Okay. She's gone. Okay, that didn't sound good. And I wouldn't say marijuana policy is not important. I mean, it relates to incarceration. It relates to a whole bunch of stuff. But it's not being discussed that much right now. But Kamala Harris mentioned it the other day. The Progressive Voice says, who wins in a basketball 1v1 with you and Kyle Kolinske? Does Kyle play basketball? I have no idea. I mean, I think I'm really good at posting people up who are 5'6" and shorter, and that doesn't include Kyle. So I don't know exactly what my strategy would be. Also, 1v1. Basketball is a team sport. What does it matter if you can win 1v1? Can you make people around you good? That's the question. Jay Camacho says, Bernie 2020, Bernie or bust, never Kamala. Yeah, that's a bad idea. I mean, Bernie or bust, that's not going to serve us well. Okay, I've got to run. That's it for me today. Thanks to everybody who joined me. I will do more streams. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who signed up, called in, super chats, all of that stuff.